Merry Christmas from the Clown Cafe. It's showtime, folks. Terrifier 3, something I've been waiting for about 2 years now. Now, if you don't know what Terrifier is, you probably don't want to find out. However, if you do know what Terrifier is, you may be excited like I was. Now, this is a 2-for-1 when it comes to Chuco's Powerhouse. This is a new release, and this is a horror talk. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-free review of Terrifier 3. My introduction to Terrifier was pretty wild, honestly. I didn't even know about the first Terrifier film until after I had seen the second one. It was Halloween night, and I remember reading reports of this movie where people were walking out of the theaters, people were throwing up, that this was the most vile thing they'd ever seen in their entire lives, and naturally decided I wanted to go watch this movie on Halloween. A horror movie I had no knowledge about, and that movie was Terrifier 2. Now, for those of you who are the casual moviegoer or casual horror moviegoer, Terrifier is a huge step up from any horror movie that you've seen. It is definitely over the top, schlocky, fun. No, fun is not the right word for I gotta be careful. I'm navigating a field here. Oh, Terrifier 3 picks up after the events of Terrifier 2. Shocker. But this picks up following Sienna after the events and the fight that she's had with Art in Terrifier 2. What it follows primarily is Sienna trying to deal with the post-traumatic stress of having fought Art the Clown and defeated him, or seemingly defeated him, and how she's dealing and coping with the attack. Now, that's about all I can say without getting into spoilers. Getting into the pros of this movie, what I saw in this film was a major improvement in the writing and narrative of the story. We got a lot more lore. We're starting to see bits and pieces of what Art the Clown really is. I think something that's been lacking in Terrifier and Terrifier 2 was some kind of narrative backing that helped us understand what Art the Clown was. Now that feeds into the mystique a little bit of what the possibilities are, but now we definitely have a more streamlined narrative about what Art the Clown is and why he's able to do the things he does. Now, Terrifier 1, for lack of a better phrase, Terrifier 1 was really just one of those films that was like a concept piece to introduce Art the Clown to, I suppose, a general horror audience. And Terrifier 2 began the narrative. So the narrative of Sienna and her brother Jonathan as these protagonists that we're primarily going to follow amongst the cannon fodder of people that are going to get slaughtered by Art the Clown. And what I liked about Terrifier 3 is that we are starting to see more of a narrative following Sienna as this final girl. And how she's dealing with this stress, I think that is portrayed pretty well. Another pro I have with this film is David Howard Thornton. Now, this man is Art the Clown to a T. I haven't seen charisma from a horror villain like this since Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger. I think Art the Clown has probably solidified himself as a horror icon so far. You know what I mean? I think Art the Clown has solidified himself as a horror icon, maybe not known by a complete large audience, but recognizable in himself just because of the charisma of David Howard Thornton. I went down a rabbit hole of Terrifier. I saw Terrifier 2 way too many times, probably. I saw it the first time that Halloween night. I saw it again with a buddy. Then I've seen it maybe 4 or 5 times after that. I just went down a rabbit hole with the Terrifier franchise. I wanted to know everything there was to know. And David Howard Thornton has got to be one of the nicest dudes in all his interviews, and the way he interacts with fans, the way he interacts with people at horror cons. He seems like the nicest dude. So for him to show up and put on a performance like this, it is so awesome. Now, granted, Art the Clown is sick. He's a sick individual, but the performance, the charisma, the kind of high energy level that Art the Clown brings to the screen is definitely something that I would see as an iconic horror villain. Lastly, what I think was a pro to this film, and this plays into the narrative a little bit, is they push the envelope without overly doing that, if for lack of a better phrase. Now, if you've seen the movie, I think you'll understand what I mean. Now, the thing is, Terrifier 2 really pushed the envelope as far as slashers go and what they could show on screen. Terrifier fans will understand what I'm talking about. Bedroom scene. They went pretty full throttle on that. But on this one, they still push the envelope. Damien Leone's Terrifier doesn't pull any punches and is still Art the Clown that we know from the first two Terrifier movies. Even though there's an introduction to the lore now, they still make sure to shock the audience. And I think that's something that is a complaint for a lot of general audiences. But we'll get into that when I talk about the mixed aspects of the film and some of the cons of this. But I think that Art the Clown is still there. They still try to shock and they still try to play to the audience they know is their fans. This is definitely a fan movie. This is a movie for the fans of the franchise. This is not a movie for people that are not fans already of Terrifier. And we're gonna get into that a little bit in a side discussion. This isn't even for tame movie going fans. If you're just a casual horror movie goer, this one is, we'll get into that. But what I'm saying is, in short, this is a movie made for the fans with love from Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton. And that is a pro, because as someone who knows the history of how Terrifier got made, I became a fan. It's the truth. I became a fan of the Terrifier franchise, knowing the history of how Art the Clown got created, how Terrifier got created, and was able to push through the mainstream in film. And we'll get into that maybe in a future video, but for now, that is a pro. Now, getting into the mixed / cons. I won't call it a con because this is super divisive as a film. Now, Terrifier, as I've said before, is not for general audiences. This isn't a movie that you go watch casually on a Saturday unless you're a horror fan like me or like some of my buddies in the Monster fam. Terrifier isn't even for like casual horror movie goer. Terrifier really pushes the envelope. So if you don't know what Terrifier is about, you don't know what it is extremely gory. And when I mean extremely gory, I'm talking like, I don't even know how to do, way over the top gore. Art the Clown not only does what slashers does, but he tortures these people. He jokes about these people. He jokes at their pain. And nobody is off limits when it comes to this slasher. And they show everything on screen. You cannot hide from what goes on the screen. I was talking to a buddy about it, and it's basically one of those things where you stand when it comes to watching horror movies. If you can't sit through Silence of the Lambs, you probably won't be able to sit through Sinister. If you can't sit through Saw, you're probably not going to be able to sit through Hostel. And if you can't sit through Hostel, you can definitely not sit through Terrifier. This is not a film for everyone, and that is something that I think should be said, that should be stated. For horror fans and fans of Art the Clown already, it's a full send. We've been waiting for this since Terrifier 2. We've been waiting to see where we were gonna go with this film. But a mixed aspect of this movie is it won't appeal to general audiences because it's not designed to. This is designed to be for fans of the franchise already, fans of Art the Clown, fans of really deep cut horror movies. Now, this is one of those films that has like that grungy 80s aesthetic to it. Even the way that the cameras and the colors that are used and that kind of grainy look, that grindhouse kind of look, it's all for the aesthetic of this film, and it's completely made for fans of the franchise already. So I definitely think, as far as if I have to give it a fair critique, I definitely would say that this is not for this. When I say this is not for everyone, I certainly mean it. You have to be a seasoned horror movie person to go watch Terrifier and enjoy it, because this is over the top gore and it's something that's just trying to be shocking a lot of the time, and a lot of the times it works, you know what I mean? But just, this isn't your typical slasher, and people need to know that. Now, getting into what I would say is my score. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and split this score because I don't think it's fair to give Terrifier a rating for general audiences and horror audiences. I think there's two separate camps here. For general audiences, this is not something you want to dive headfirst into. This, I have to be honest with that. This is not something that you want to be your first horror movie experience. I definitely think there is, as I told a buddy of mine, there are levels to this, and this is probably up here. You don't want to start here. Terrifier 3 is already the third part of a top level of horror. You do not want to jump in head first there. I jumped in on Terrifier 2, but that is besides the point, all right? But for general audiences, understand that this is way over the top. This is really designed for fans of the franchise already. So I don't even want to give it a score for general audiences because it would be unfair to the film and for fans of Terrifier. But as a fan of the franchise, it is a major step up in the narrative direction, in the writing, in the acting, and everything that Art has done before is carried over into this one. So it basically gave fans everything they wanted while also improving and giving us more lore. And it left a little bit of room to see Art possibly come back, which is something that always excites horror fans. I think Art has solidified himself as a horror icon. And in my book, Terrifier 3 is a positive Chuko review. Do I want to give it a score? I'm a little cautious about that. This is one of those things that is really difficult for me to do. I think personally, and for major horror fans and fans of Terrifier, this is definitely a major step up from Terrifier 2. Where I think this is, for me, considering it has very dark comedy and all the other things that I've said before, Terrifier kind of checks those boxes. It is so over the top that you understand that this is just fiction. This is just crazy. Now, there is something that should be said. There is trigger warnings for people that are maybe not comfortable with stuff. This pushes the envelope. So just a trigger warning to the general audience that may watch my videos and is here usually for just straight up movie reviews. This is horror. Not out of fright per se, but out of sheer gore. But if I'm gonna give this a score based as a fan of Terrifier, I would honestly give this a 3.5, maybe a 4 as far as how it feels for the Terrifier franchise, okay? This is not a rating of film in general. This is not a rating for general audiences. This is a rating for the fans of the franchise, for my horror fans, for the spooky season people. This is a rating for you. And you know what? I'm gonna stand by that. I'm gonna talk about it more. I'm probably gonna do a spoiler talk for Terrifier 3 and talk about Terrifier 1 and 2 in that video as well. And we'll get into that maybe in that future video. But for now, I'm gonna stick with the 3.5 out of 5 for Terrifier 3. But with that, guys, what did you think about Terrifier 3? Have you seen this movie? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Are you part of the general audience that thinks this is just crazy gore and it shouldn't be on the screen? And why is that? And if you're a horror fan, are you happy with Terrifier 3? Were you disappointed? Were you excited? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you like and share this video. It really helps the channel grow and it really keeps me motivated to make these videos. Or if you'd like to see more of good old Chuko, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. I like talking film with everybody and I like, you know, back and forth with other people about film, especially controversial ones like this one. I think it's fun. I enjoy the conversation when it comes to film and I look forward to it. I also just, you know, nerd out about this stuff, so take that as you will. But guys, if a killer clown dressed as Santa Claus with a chainsaw is ever chasing you down a dark alleyway, always remember something my friend Sienna used to tell me, and that's